Welcome to another issue of our playoff edition of Upon Further Review, our weekly Butler County High School football show. We are sponsored, as we are on a weekly basis, by Troy Allen Chevrolet Buick GMC, Conlon Tarker, and the Butler Health System. My name is John Enrietto. I'm the sports editor of the Butler Eagle, joined as I am every week by sports writer Derek Pida and our host for this week, sports writer Mike Kilroy. So, Mike, I'll just throw it over to you.
All right, guys. Well, we kind of had a little bit of a Black Friday there for our playoff teams this week. We lost a bunch of them. What stood out for you, John, this weekend in the action that we had in the playoffs? We only had two teams kind of move on, so it was kind of a dark Friday for a lot of our teams.
Well, look at two games. I think we all have to look at Karns City's win over Brookville. You're talking about a Brookville team that was just steamrolling everybody, including Karns City, who they beat 44-0 during the regular season. And I know Brookville had some COVID-19 testing issues that cost them a handful of starting players. But still, when you go from losing 44-0 to winning 16-14 in a playoff situation, that speaks volumes for Karns City. They were able to run the ball. They were able to keep Brookville's offense off the field. Just a huge win for that program. And they move on to play Wilmington, of course, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So kudos to the Gremlins. And the other game I have to look at is the North Allegheny game with Seneca Valley. The Raiders, you have to feel for them injury-wise on the offensive side of the football. What's happened to them this year? The injury bug bit them again last week, having to go to a third-string quarterback. And that matched up, even though they did get Ethan West back at running back, to go to a third-string quarterback against that defense at North Allegheny, just too much to handle. So good year for Seneca Valley, but I'm sure Derek will agree it's going to be one of those what might have been years for the Raiders had they stayed healthy the entire year.
Yeah, definitely kudos for Karns City for bouncing back from that 44-0 loss to Brookville and winning 16-14. Even if Brookville had guys out, it's still an impressive turnaround. Derek, are you going to talk about Seneca Valley and third-string quarterbacks playing in playoff games against NA?
I'm going to talk about Seneca Valley just in terms of Ethan West. Obviously, he has to be disappointed like the rest of his teammates are with the season coming to an end. But I've talked to Ethan several times, and just any high school football player, you have to have some type of competitive spirit to succeed in that type of sport. I mean, it's a grind. It's physical. You have to have the right mental approach. And for him, I know they lost, but I have to believe that he's much more satisfied just from the perspective that his season ended on the field as opposed to being on the sideline. Because I talked to Coach Ron Butchley immediately after that injury happened back in, I guess it was early October. And he said, if we make an extended playoff run, he might be able to come back. Well, as it turned out, Seneca Valley just played one playoff game, but Ethan West was able to go out and play. It has to be easier for him to stomach that than just standing on the sidelines and watching his team go down that way. And, of course, the game I covered, Mars and Thomas Jefferson, the defending state champion. We know how good Mars's running game was this year, but TJ is just at another level, both on offense and defense. Very balanced on offense, and their defense, the proof is in the numbers. Teddy Ruffner, 12 carries, 11 yards. When's the last time we saw that? And his season actually did end on the sidelines because he got hurt late in the first half, went to the sidelines, never came back. And Coach Einauer told me he could have come back, but at that point it's 34-0. He's got a scholarship to play baseball down in North Carolina at UNC Wilmington. Yeah. No use sticking him back in there. I mean, they weren't going to come back from 34-0 down. So a disappointing end for the Planets, but overall a great season for them. And a great season for all of our teams, even the ones that lost in the playoffs last week. Just to get to the playoffs, any season's made better when you make the postseason, obviously.
All right, let's move on to our discussion topic. I'm zigging here instead of zagging. We're going to talk about kind of football, but kind of not. This year with COVID-19, the state playoffs have changed. In other sports, it's always been in football that you have to win your district to move on. Now it's like that in other sports. So I'm just wondering, guys, what you think about that. If you think that's the way it should be, I think it really makes you earn it and have a sense of accomplishment to make the state playoffs. I think the state playoffs should be something that only the elite make. I never was a fan of these seventh place teams out of the Whippeal making the playoffs. What do you guys think? Derek, what do you think about kind of the narrowing of the state playoff field and what it means for our teams and teams in general making it there to the state playoffs?
Obviously, with the way the playoffs are set up now in soccer, you have to win your district. So getting to the state playoffs, yeah, it's obviously harder. You can't go to your district championship game and lose and still go to states. But overall, I hope they do bring back the regular format, assuming we get past COVID at some point. Hopefully we do. But, in soccer, baseball, softball, 16 teams in every class from across the state make the playoffs. I think that's a fair number because let's face it, you can win your district. If it's a small district, you can be the best of 4 or 5 teams in your class in the district. Okay, that's great. You're your district champion. But what about the Whippeal that has so many teams in each class? You could finish second, runner-up in your district, and you could actually, in reality, be better than the district champion from 2 hours away just because it's such a smaller district out there. The problem I have, the one bracket that I have a problem with the way it's been run for years is basketball. 32 teams in each class, boys and girls, make the state playoffs in basketball. That's too many. I think it should be 16. I understand why it's cut down this year for soccer. Only district champions go. But if we ever get back to normal, hopefully we do, I'd like to see them get back to a 16-team bracket. And I would also like to see basketball get cut down from 32 to 16. I think 16 is a good number. 16 across the state. That allows, every district is represented by their champion. But the stronger districts get a runner-up, maybe in some cases a third-place team.
Well, John, we know you're old school. What do you think about?
I am old school. I am, and you
you
guys
think
probably know where I'm heading on this topic,
Yes,
but I'll
I do.
say it anyway.
Really
But I'll
like
say it
it.
anyway. To me, it's real simple. At the district level, you can put in as many teams as you want into the playoffs. I don't care. You want to put them all in and have like a tournament of a district tournament, go ahead. But when you lose in the playoffs, your season should be over. I mean, you shouldn't take the state tournament should be only district champions. When you lose a playoff game, your season ends. I mean, a lot of states that's how it is. Pennsylvania, obviously is not that way. And to me, it just gets overcomplicated. I mean, we've joked in past years here. There's been a couple of instances where teams will get to play like 3 or 4 times in a postseason before they're finally done. I mean, when you make the playoffs, great, but then from there you should be playing for your season every game. When you lose, you're done. That to me, I know that's old school, but that's just how I feel about it.
Yeah, we had a number of teams a few years ago basically lose 3 straight games before they were out of the playoffs. That's a little ridiculous. I see both sides of this. One side is, you want to make the state playoffs special. You want to really have to be elite of the elite to make it. But the other side is, you want players and teams that have as many opportunities to keep their season going as possible. So I see both sides of it. I agree with Derek. The basketball playoffs are too huge. They need to cut those down. It's kind of ridiculous when a 9th place team from a district can make the playoffs in basketball. I mean, come on. So I can see both sides of it, but I lean a little bit toward John here. I think making the state playoffs should be special. You should really, really have to earn it, and really the only way to earn it is to win your district. So
you win your district, you win your district, then you get to go to the state tournament.
You're the best team in your district.
If you lose in your district, your season's over.
I want to bring up one thing here, John. You mentioned that the state playoffs should be the elite of the elite, right?
That's what I said.
What I'm saying is the state playoff should be whoever hasn't lost yet. That in the playoffs, that should be the state
in
playoffs.
some districts, all you have to do is win one game to get this district championship because the districts are so small. Out east, you can have a district that's so strong in soccer. Let's say District 1 from suburban Philly. You could win 3 games against really good competition, get to the district final, and lose on penalty kicks in the final to a really good team. Now, which team's better in your mind? The team that from District 1 that won 3 playoff games, lost to a really good team on PKs, or a team that only has to win 1 game to win their district championship? You said you want the elite of the elite.
No,
Which team is better doesn't matter to me, Derek. What matters to me is if you don't win your district, even if you get upset, maybe you got, obviously number 1, number 2, number 3 seeds, they get upset all the time. It happens. It's part of sports. But to me, it's one on the field. It doesn't matter to me at what point you lose, whether you lose after winning 3 games in a big district and you lose your district title, you still lost a playoff game, so your season should end.
All right,
Same
Mike,
that's my feeling on it.
Mike said the elite of the elite. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I agree with you in a way, Derek, because in a perfect world, the districts would be even. There'd be an even amount of teams in the district playoffs, and we wouldn't have this argument. But you're right, there are some districts that have very few teams compared to other districts. But again, I lean toward John. I think you should have to win a district championship to play in the state playoffs. Remember, it wasn't all that long ago that there wasn't even a state playoff. You were done at the district level. So,
John says he's old school. This has always been the case. That's not really an old school way of thinking. There's always been runner-ups and third place and fourth place teams make the district championship or the state playoffs. It's always.
I was talking old school in the way of thinking that you need to.
That's
win.
in Pennsylvania. It's not that way in all states. Some states do have you lose, you're done at whatever level. I mean, some states do it that way. Pennsylvania, you're right. Pennsylvania does not and has not done it that way, but other states have though.
We all do. We all agree the basketball playoffs absolutely need to be cut down.
Oh, definitely.
I'd take it down to 16. That's just my opinion.
Well, we didn't really solve anything with that topic.
Hey, we never solve anything.
We're not going to solve anything.
Let's move on to our over/under. Last year, North Catholic and Elizabeth Foward, who play again this week in the Whitfield semifinals, they played last year in a regular season, and it was our favorite word, a slobber knocker. 12-7, North Catholic won. So my over/under this week, it should be another defensive battle. Both teams are pretty strong defensively. Over/under and a point scored in this game, guys, 30.5. John, do you think that these two teams are going to play another low-scoring game, or do you think they're going to go over 30.5 points combined?
Well, I did some numbers crunching on this over/under. As soon as I saw this, I looked at Elizabeth Foward scores for this year. Both these teams, of course, are 7-0. Or I'm sorry, North Catholic is 8-0, and Elizabeth Foward is 7-0. But Elizabeth Foward this year has only played one game where they would have been under that 30.5 over/under. They beat Mount Pleasant 16-14. And everyone knows the way that North Catholic can pile up points. They score on pretty much everybody. I think Elizabeth Foward scores points. They also give up points. They've given up not a ton of points, but I think something like 67 points in the last 4 games. Like I said, that's not a ton, but it's certainly enough to put me. I think it's going to be way over, honestly. Last year, you're right, 12-7, a defensive scrum all the way through, but that was last year. This is a different season. I think it's going to be over, and probably by a pretty good margin.
Derek, do you think I should set this over under a little too low?
Actually, no. I actually think both teams have really good offenses, but if you got down to the basics of each team, the most impressive part of each team, in my opinion, from what I've seen. I haven't covered North Catholic this year. I obviously haven't covered Liz Foward. I think the strongest part of both teams is their defense, even though both offenses are good. And I think defense is going to reign in this game. I'll save my pick for a few minutes, but I think both teams' defenses are going to have their – both teams are going to get yards, but I just don't see a bunch of points being scored here. I think both defenses are that good.
And in hindsight, I probably set this a little too low. It should have been maybe somewhere around 35.5, 37.5. So I do think they're going to go over, but I do think it's going to be a defensive battle. I don't see either team really lighting it up on the scoreboard. John mentioned North Catholic piling up the points. They did a lot of their damage against some weaker teams and piling up points against those teams. When they played good defenses, they still have scored 28, 35. But I don't think they faced a defense like Elizabeth Foward's defense. I don't think Elizabeth Foward has faced a defense like North Catholic's. So I think this is going to be a bare-knuckle brawl for a while. So I'm going to go a little bit over, though. I probably should have set it a little higher. So we'll get to the picks later, and so you guys will know how much over we think they're going to go. And now let's go to our picks. Well, we only have 2 games now. Heard today that the Montauk game against Sharpsville has been postponed because of course, COVID. So we have the 2 playoff games. Let's go right into Elizabeth Foward and North Catholic. Derek, how do you see this game playing out? We talked a little bit about how it might be a defensive struggle. How do you think this one's going to pan out against 2 undefeated teams?
I just did a bunch of research last night on Montauk Sharpsville. I'm crushed. I just did all that research. Anyway, I picked Montauk to win 21-7. So, EF and North Catholic, all season I feel like I'm jumping off the bandwagon here. I said it all season it was going to be North Catholic against Central Valley in the district title game. Now I'm kind of swaying from that. I actually think EF is going to win this game. I do. I think it's going to be very low scoring. EF has a powerful ground game. They also have a passing game that doesn't have all the stats, but I talked to their coach today. He said every time we've needed a big play in the passing game this year, at the crucial times, we've made it. So I think it's going to be a really good game. I see the Warriors, though, coming out with a 15-14 victory over the Trojans.
John, so Derek goes under by a little smidge. Johnny said you're going to go way over. What makes you think this is going to be a shootout?
Well, I think Freeport last week and playing it, I think Freeport probably, again, I wasn't there, so I'm guessing when I say this, but I think Freeport probably battled a little bit of nerves. They fell down by a lot of points early. Once Freeport settled down and played football, they moved the ball and scored on that EF defense. And Freeport's offense, all due respect, that is not the offense that North Catholic brings to the table. North Catholic playing at home, they're settled in, they're a confident football team. I think they're looking at the bigger picture. They have huge goals in mind, and I just don't think Elizabeth Foward is going to contain them all that well. But I'm picking North Catholic to win this game 35-21.
All right. Well, I also have North Catholic winning, but I have it 21-14. So I should have set the over under at 35.5, I guess. I think North Catholic's going to do just enough. I think Joey Prentice is the X factor here. The way he can run and throw. Last week they made a great adjustment. They went to trips, opened up huge running lanes for Joey Prentice and Kyle Topinski. I think the coaching staff's going to be able. I think it's going to be almost like a prize fight where these two teams are going to be filling each other out for a while, and then the adjustments are going to be made. I think North Catholic's going to make the better adjustments, and that's what's going to put them over the top, 21-14.
Yeah, you know what? One other thing on that game, Elizabeth Foward last week. I forget the last year, Derek. You might know this. The last year, Elizabeth Foward won a playoff game. You got to go way back, and I'm sure congrats to them for getting that playoff win. But again, this is a case to me where here's a team. They're thrilled to get a playoff win. They're thrilled to be moving on. North Catholic, I think, is going to be entering this game with a totally different mindset where they're not satisfied with one playoff win. Like I said, they see the bigger picture, bigger goals. I think EF's just going to get caught here. I really do. I think North Catholics are going to take control and handle them. I really believe that.
All right, 2 picks for North Catholic, 1 for Elizabeth Foward. Let's move on to our other playoff game, Karns City at Wilmington. John, do we know what day this is yet? Friday or Saturday? Have they decided?
We do not know yet. I have not talked to. I talked to Joe Sherman, the Karns City coach, last night. He did not. He would not confirm nor deny that they're playing on Saturday. I know there's reports out there that the game is on Saturday night. The game is definitely at Wilmington. We know that much. We do not know whether it's Friday or Saturday. I'm guessing it's going to be Saturday for the simple reason that Wilmington played this past Saturday. They're going to probably want that extra day. Plus, it's Wilmington's home game. So I have a feeling it's going to be a Saturday night game. Could be wrong there, but we don't know. As of this taping, we don't know for sure.
Well, hopefully they'll make the decision before Friday. Anyway.
Yeah. I
John,
think they'll do that.
How do you see this one playing out? I know you were doing a little research last night on Wilmington. They like to ground and pound, don't they? The Greyhounds.
They do. Wilmington, they played 7 games. They've thrown 33 passes. That includes the playoffs. So you do the math. That's less than 5 passes per game. This team does not put it up. They ground it. You talk about old school. They play the old school wing tee. We're coming at you, try to stop us. That's Wilmington football. That was Terry Varelli's teams for years played that way. Now they're I believe his name is Brandon Fillion. Their new coach. He was Varelli, a protege, was on his staff for 11 years prior to taking over. He's in his 3rd year.
He played there.
Actually, very similar to Joe Sherman's case at Karns City. Joe Sherman was on Ed Conta's staff for a long time. He took over. He's in his 3rd year also. So I'm going with Wilmington. I think this is going to be a ground and pound type of game. Joe Joe Sherman told me Sunday night, only half jokingly, don't show up late for this game. You'll probably miss half of it because it's going to be a fast game. So because both teams are going to try to do the same thing. But I'm going with Wilmington in what I expect to be a close game, 28-20.
So I'm going with Karns City because I think Wilmington kind of plays into Karns City's hands here. Karns City's had trouble stopping the pass all year. Obviously, Wilmington doesn't like to pass the ball very much. I think Karns City's much more sound against the run. And I think Karns City, coming off of that big win last week, that big emotional win, I think they're riding high right now. So I think Karns City's going to pull off the upset here. I see them winning a little bit of a low-scoring game too. I think they're going to win 20-16 over Wilmington and move on in the playoffs. Derek, they're going to make it. How are you going to break the tie here? How are you going to break the tie between John and I on these two picks?
Well, you mentioned that Terry Varelli stepped down a few years ago, John, but undefeated record entering the state playoffs. I mean, that sounds like a Varelli team to me. It sounds like they got the same blueprint that he had when he was there. It's tough to get reads on teams this year. I looked at Wilmington's schedule. District 10 had those bubbles where you basically only played 3 teams and you played them like two, 3 times each. Wilmington played Greenville 3 times this year, Farrell 3 times this year, twice this year for Greenville, 3 times for Farrell. They just beat Farrell in the playoffs, and they beat Sharpsville as well. I mean, that was their schedule the whole season. They just beat Farrell by 5 points in the District 10 title game. I just think it's kind of strength going up against strength. The running game for Karns City, running game against, for Wilmington. I just think the one for Wilmington's a little bit more potent, although, Karns City has turned it on the last few weeks as far as being able to run the ball. But Wilmington, Greyhounds, it's tough to go against Wilmington just because you know the name, you know what they're capable of, what they've done in the past. I'm going with the Greyhounds 27-16. But
I'll say this much.
Kudos to Karns City on turning that around against Brookville. That was a great turnaround.
I mean, I'll say this, though. Both these teams are probably thrilled to be playing somebody else, somebody different.
Yeah, they're not going to know what to do with themselves. They're like, hey, we have never seen you before. Although these two teams do have quite a history, actually, going back a few years, Wilmington and Karns City. They played a few drag out games, but we'll maybe see that in the preview. All right, let's move on to our What About segment. We had a big cross-country week last week. We had multiple champions. C.J. Singleton won the Class 3A race, and his teammate Sage Vavro finished second. Knox Mike Formica won the 2A race. So, guys, John, what can you say about our cross-country runners this year? They had a fantastic season.
No doubt about that, and especially Butler. You mentioned C.J. Singleton and Sage Vavro. When you can finish 1-2 from the same school, and there's 210 runners in that race. I mean, it's not like this is just even a basic invite. I mean, there's 200 plus runners in. Teammates finish first and second. That's pretty amazing. And the other thing I'll say about those two guys is the track was. I talked to both of them, that night, the night of their race. The track was muddy, extremely slick and slippery. They both were leading about 1,200 meters in, and they were rounding a bend, and Vavro slipped on a little mud bog there and fell down. He fell into CJ, and he went down. So both these guys went down, and then a block of 4 runners just sailed on past them. And then these 2 kids, they got up, they were fine. They didn't even care if they were hurt. They were just going to keep on running. And they caught this pack of 4 guys about another 400 meters down, passed them up, and finished 1-2. That's determination. It's probably adrenaline push, helping out there. And then for Knox, Mike Formica, the same deal. 206 runners in the double race. He wins it. Talking to him the night of his race, he said when the track season was canceled last spring, he told his coach right away, well, I'm just going to get ready for cross country now. And he started training for cross country like back in last week of March, first week of April, all the way through the summer. And that training clearly showed off because he just peaked at the right time in that Woodville race. Yeah,
his story is really amazing. There's a kid that made lemonade out of lemons here.
Yep,
he knew a season we was going to have a track season, so he's like, you know what? I'm going to focus on the cross country season. I'm going to get myself in the best shape I can, the best running I can, and look, it paid off.
He took the right approach.
Championship.
Yep.
Great for that young man to be able to do something like that, and who overcome the adversity that he overcame. Derek, what are your thoughts on our cross country runners this year? Obviously, huge achievements for all of them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's easy for me to say this because I'm not out there competing. I run to the bathroom these days. That's where I run. But
I only run when I'm chased.
But I like when the elements, come into play when it comes to sport. I love snow football games. I love rain football games. And in this case, I know it's tough when you're thinking about kids out there running on grass, and the grass, the dirt becomes mud. And obviously there's a chance for injury, as John alluded to. But thankfully, the kids came out of it not only okay, but they actually ended up winning for Butler, Sage and CJ. But just the fact that they had to battle not only the competition, but the elements, I like hearing that. I like reading about how kids adapt to it and are able to push through. And let's not forget North Catholic's girls won the AA girls team title at the Whitfield. I think, John, your story said that the last 3 years they finished either second or third. So this year they finally rose above the rest of the team, and they were led by a freshman, Grace Lazara. She finished 4th overall for them. Obviously great for Knock, Butler, and North Catholic. The only thing is, John, I think I read in your story, in normal years without the COVID, Butler's boys team would have made it to the States, and this year they didn't. Is that right?
That is correct. In past years, they take the top, I think 3 teams go. So Seneca Valley's boys would have also gone because they finished in 3rd place. And I was just going to touch on that, actually, your comment about North Catholic girls. If they did not win the Whitfield this year, their team would not have gone to the state meet, which is this Saturday, by the way. So North Catholic picked the right year to break through and win the thing. That's for sure.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning North Catholic. I left them out of our sheet. You don't want to leave them out. Great season for them. So that concludes our show here today. We'll see what we talk about next week. Hopefully, we'll have a couple of state football playoff winners and district winner. I guess this one's district, one's a kind of a state playing game. So got a little confused there. Hopefully we'll have some winners to talk about next week.
Well, you know what? One thing, before we do get off, we should make mention. Congratulations to the Knock girls tennis team.
Of course.
They won the state championship over the weekend. Not only winning it, they did not drop a set in either match. They won the first match 5-0, and they won the state title match 3-0. They had to clinch, so they stopped the match. So that's just an amazing run continues for Knock tennis. We should mention that.
I think we talked about that last year, didn't we? About how they
we sure did.
They clinched. Here you got. Okay, well, we won't talk about that. We're running out of time.
Save that for next week, maybe.
For another day. That they stopped the match in a state championship match because the team already won. Whatever. All right. Thanks everyone for watching. See you next week.
All right.